It's early morning on the May River, and I'm hunting oxeye herring, a bony, less than edible species that fight like devils. Hookups are inevitable, the battle is spirited, and my opponent proves too wily for me. Having departed Derby, it's time to tackle the legendary Gibb River Road. It's an iconic four-wheel drive adventure that rarely fails to appear in any four-wheel drive magazine you'll ever read. There's some spectacular scenery before us, but will the Gibb River provide the four-wheel drive challenges that we expect?
During the tourist season, the Gibb is far from a technical four-wheel drive challenge. This popular adventure trail received some major upgrades in the mid-noughts and is now a well-formed gravel road with several sections of asphalt. Even so, four-wheel drive vehicles are still recommended as the corrugations can feel lethal, and there are some river crossings, such as the Pentecost and the Durack. This former cattle route was originally called Mount House Road and stretches 660 kilometers from Derby to the junction between Wyndham and Kununurra. Primarily providing access to the cattle stations and Aboriginal communities, the road now draws in the tourists, and people flock to the region to marvel at the splendours of Australia's last frontier.
Our first stop is Windjana Gorge, an ancient Devonian coral reef that has been dissected by the Leonard River. When they declare it's inhabited by freshwater crocodiles, they're not bluffing. Infested is a term I would personally use. There's a sneaky access point into the gorge through a narrow cave and onto the riverside walking trail. The occasional fossil is evident as one wanders through the gorge, and in addition to the crocs, wildlife is abundant. Short-eared rock wallabies lurk amongst the boulders and shadowy foliage. Squawking flying foxes hang from the trees. The greater bowerbird tends his Chateau de Moor. Brolgas soar through the gorge, searching the waterways for morsels. And a lovely surprise for the trekker are green ants.
These angry creatures use the silk of their larvae to bind leaves together for shelter, and while a single bite is uncomfortable, when swarmed the victim can feel quite panicked. It's usually the second or third member of the party passing through that gets that pleasure.
There are two species of crocodiles that inhabit the Australian continent, and the ones that live here in Windjana Gorge in great numbers are what we call freshwater or Johnson's crocodiles. They grow to about 3 metres long, they eat frogs, reptiles and fish, they have long slender snouts and are generally regarded as not a threat to humans. However, they still must be treated with caution and can give a nasty bite if provoked. Someone just wants to explain that we're here at Tunnel Creek and we're about to venture in for a closer inspection.
I've lost my voice, you jerk.
We venture into the gloom with our water boots on and torches ready. This stream has carved its way under the mountain for 750 metres. At times the ceiling is low, unless like Wilms you're a little short of shank, but at other times can be a huge vault high above your head.
Dwellers of the darkness enjoy the protection of the tunnel. Bats lurk in the crevices and a monstrous huntsman spider perches atop a rock. In the deeper pools are even more sinister-looking occupants. This injured sleepy cod looks like it may have run afoul of the resident freshie.
Midway through, a collapse has opened up the cave, allowing sunlight to stream in. It can get surprisingly busy in this subterranean world, kind of like being in a Perth shopping mall on a Sunday during a blackout.
Eventually, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and the stream stretching away into the forest. Immediately outside the tunnel, up high on the stone, are old native cave paintings. just one indication that this place has a lot of history.
Tunnel Creek was a hideout for an Aboriginal police tracker turned renegade back in the late 19th century. Jandamurra was a member of the Bunaba tribe who led a resistance against the pastoralist invaders until killed in 1897. These are the police ruins, where all the action began the saga of Jandamurra. We're at the historic ruins, an old police station just near Winjana Gorge, and noticed a lot of coolant coming out of the system. We've checked all the pipes, can't find a leak, and my worst fears have been realised. It's from the radiator. And it is very difficult to see. Just up above the bottom you can see it oozing out from between the fins. And that's not good. That means we're going to have to go back to Derby and get a new radiator. And, and try and patch this one up to get us there. We've heard it said that pepper can make a patch for a leaky radiator or cooling system, so we're going to try this one out. Another alternative are egg whites, but as pepper is finer, I'd rather use this than have a big stinking omelette floating around in my cooling system. We'll give it a try. Alright, fingers crossed, we'll run the engine, see how it goes. We're checking for leaks every 10 or 20 kilometres over this rough road. We don't want to cook the engine. Not a drop to be seen. The pepper's worked. It's apparent that in any Outback Explorer's toolkit should be a good condiments kit.
So it is, we find ourselves back in Derby, much sooner than anticipated, in order to organise a new radiator for the Landy. So we call Shane at Wyatt's Land Rover down in Geraldton.
No problem, Gavin. We can have a radiator to you in a couple of weeks. We'll get it on its way today for you.
So we resume our residence in the van and wait it out.
The new radiator for the wagon has arrived. Voila. Without the slender spanner designed to remove the viscous fan, this job will be a little tougher than it needs to be. But hey, wouldn't life be dull if it wasn't horribly hard? One of the first tasks will be to drain the coolant from the system, starting with the lower pipes. Whoops, hey, it's a little splashy. That's a shining example of what not to do. We're staying at young Tommy's house. He collects V-dubs and has 3, one for each year of his life. If you're a rubbish mechanic like myself, then these sorts of jobs are as much fun as slamming your head in a door. After a few more hidden bolts and brackets, the radiator comes free. One radiator extracted, and how it's going to go back together is anybody's guess. So here we have the original radiator, and the new one has rubber boots that it sits on, most likely to stop the vibrations, where this has these contraptions. That one is missing, and there were scuff marks on the base plate. So in my inexpert opinion, all the vibrations of the road have come up through the car into the radiator and caused an early demise, which is why we are replacing it. Now the final part is to fit in the new radiator, and then the adventure can continue.
Oh, that doesn't look good.
It's essential to keep your fluids up while you're working on a vehicle, regardless of the climate. Cheers.
At last, we return to the wild, passing again through the Napier Range at a point named Queen Victoria's Head. The land turns even more savage as the road negotiates the rugged King Leopold Mountains. It feels like you're driving on the bones of the earth as the relentless and horrific corrugations thunder away beneath the vehicle. Our destination is a remote waterfall situated amid stunning scenery and is arguably the most popular attraction along the Gibb. From the turnoff, it's around another 30 kilometers along more rough roads with some water crossings to break up the brutality. En route is the Silent Grove campsite that seems inappropriately named considering the generator situation. Eventually, we arrive at a very full and dusty car park.
We're about to begin our jaunt into Bell Gorge, which is a major attraction along the Gibb River Road. The popularity of Bell Gorge is well deserved. A near-perfect waterfall cascades its way into a deep pool that flows away through the red rocks, while above, a tranquil stream disappears into the wilds. A climb and a scramble gets folks down into the gorge, where a large flat rock awaits that can get quite cosy in the busy season. Chances are, however, that for a good portion of the year, Bell Gorge sees very few people, if at all. We are in the tropics, and the high water levels in the wet season cuts access to many of the north's remote roads and tracks. Depending on the amount of rain and how late the rains persist, some of these tracks may not open till as late as May or even June. So driving along the Gibb River Road is not the technical four-wheel drive challenge like you'd expect on the Canning stock route, but it's not without its quirks and dangers. Depending on how long it's been since the grade has gone through, we found the corrugations to be quite fierce. There's a lot of sharp stones on the road that can threaten your tyres, and it's very dusty out here, which can obscure vision. The greatest threat to your well-being, however, is going to be other drivers travelling along this road at great speeds. As they go past, they can fling up a lot of debris, and that threatens, of course, your windshield, and if they lose control, it can threaten you. It appears that some of these drivers see that the journey between where they've come from and where they got to go is an unfortunate byproduct of the travelling experience instead of the best part. There is also a price paid by local wildlife that fail to avoid the motorised death machines.
Water trickles from crevices in the rock year-round from where it's filled from the torrential rains of the wet, providing a safe haven for delicate plants that would not otherwise be able to exist. Rock figs anchored on high ledges send their long roots down the cliff to the moisture below. These deep pools of water were focal points for the Aboriginal people and provide sanctuary for crocodiles, turtles, frogs, and fish. Adcock Gorge is yet another of many attractions not far off the main track. Spiny, spiraling pandanus fruits are eaten by sulfur-crested cockatoos and are good homes to double-barred finches. Long-tailed finches frequent the edges of the waterways. Both species are a daily sighting in this part of the world.
We're looking at a Merton's water monitor, which is a fairly common lizard up around the top end. As the name suggests, they like billabongs and swamps, most likely eating fish and frogs. Galvin's Gorge is in close proximity and another popular little oasis for the dusty traveller to take a wash. These attractions are generally protected from saltwater crocodile insurgents by natural barriers farther downstream, such as waterfalls and rocks. Not all waters along the Gibb are safe to swim though, especially on the east side, where the road crosses some of the larger rivers. The dominant habitat in the north is the open woodlands. The copious flowers of the eucalyptus trees provide food for not only an abundant supply of honeyeaters, but numerous colourful red-necked lorikeets. Adding to the abundant supply of nectar are the fern-leafed grevilleas. They can even be a sweet treat for humans once the insects are flicked off.
Amongst these open forests, varied satellas quietly go about their business, searching for bugs and spiders under the bark of trees. Gray-fronted honeyeaters prove curious customers, critically inspecting our intrusion and seem unimpressed. Secluded bodies of water are great spots to quietly sit and watch. Agile wallabies emerge from the brush to drink. A pair of fearless willy wagtails harass a brown goshawk, while a restless flycatcher chases bugs. White-necked herons patrol the banks, as does their cousin, a white-faced heron, winning a showdown over a wallaby. Black cockatoos and whistling kites come down for a visit. Even a pair of galahs decide to join in the gathering. Then, as the day draws to an end, it's time to light the campfire and get the billy boiling.
Perhaps give or take quite a bit. Mount Barnett Roadhouse would be around the halfway point and provides fuel, water and basic supplies for expeditioners. It even has its own little welcoming party of mangy hounds. The Roadhouse is part of an operating cattle station that occupies roughly 700,000 acres. Another reason for pulling in is its close proximity to another amazing attraction, Manning Gorge.
The hike to Manning Gorge is about 2.5 kilometers here, which means we've got probably close to an hour of a hot, sweaty walk. So hopefully, the swim at the end is worth it.
We traverse across rugged terrain under the watchful eye of a dragon lizard until descending into the Manning River.
Another fantastic swimming location, open to the sunlight. The water is not as frosty as other more protected places. I do confess to being a cold water hydrophobe. Wilms, however, has a preference for cooler environments. The pool is also quite deep. I'd guesstimate it at perhaps 12 to 14 metres to the slimy boulders below.
The Manning River is quite an extensive system beyond the main attraction, with plenty of pretty pools and waterfalls between the rocky walls of the gorge. Once the exploring is done, we find ourselves back on the road. We're about to undertake a rather significant side trip from the Gibb River Road and make our way up to the Kimberley's far northern reaches, where we plan to explore Columbaroo and the spectacular Mitchell Plateau. Be sure to join us on the next episode of Western Walkabout. Bye for now.